Hi everyone. I wanted to come on here and share a dream that I had last night. It's for a purpose and I feel that it needs to be shared. I feel it gives us some insight into what might be going on behind the scenes spiritually. Just what we're seeing in the news with all of the families getting separated at the border, at the United States and Mexican border. I feel it reveals the enemy's tactics, and I didn't have an interpretation until just recently. I prayed and it was like a veil lifted and I could see. I also sought the word, sought the Lord in it by seeking the word, and I was led to Isaiah chapter 2, and then also some more scriptures in Zechariah chapter 7, I believe, that also support this message. So I'll just start off telling the dream. Last night I had a dream that I was in a courtroom, and it was within a larger stadium of people, but there was a room that looked like a courtroom. It looked like someplace where justice was to be carried out, where people went to seek justice. And there were lots of people convening in the room. However, they were all fearful, so they were bringing their own weapons to the courtroom. So because they were fearful, they were taking justice into their own hands. The enemy showed up and he had a machine gun. So he was making us even more fearful. His tactic was to separate people. He separated us all into these smaller rooms around the courtroom, to where we couldn't see one another. And once we were separated, he told us that if we tried to escape the individual rooms that we were in, that everyone else would be harmed and would not be allowed to leave. I ended up escaping, and I could see that whenever I was in the hall room outside of this courtroom, outside of the individual rooms where everyone was scattered into, it was marked 666. And I thought that was really strange. I was going to seek help. I was also afraid that people wouldn't believe me because it just sounds strange, the room being marked 666. They might, I was afraid that they would think that I was trying to prank them. So whenever I was praying about this and talking it through with the Lord, I feel like that's what the enemy is trying to do. He is trying to bring fear into the places where true justice is supposed to be carried out. So if the enemy can make us fearful, then we will bring our own weapons to the game, trying to desperately take justice into our own hands. But this is exactly where the enemy wants us, in a place of fear and distrust. And then once he arrives, where we're all gathered together trying to take justice into our own hands, he'll then try to scatter the sheep. His tactic in this dream was to scatter us into smaller individual rooms to where we were isolated from one another. And he told us to not try to escape or everyone else would be harmed. And I feel like this is sort of paralleled to what I feel is going on, separating children from their families at the United States and Mexican borders. It's just sad, and it's immoral, and it's not right, and that's not the heart of God at all. Leviticus 19 verse 33 through 34, when a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. I feel like the fact that this zero tolerance policy has come out, I feel like it's our administration, our leaders trying to take justice into their own hands because they're fearful of what might happen. Exodus 22, or chapter 22, verse 21, do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Matthew 25, verses 34 through 46. Then the king will say to those on his right, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Zechariah chapter 7, 9 through 10, this is what the Lord Almighty said, administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verses 17 through 18, for the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. Folks, after I had this dream, and I had it obviously last night, and it took me a while, and I prayed, and God revealed the enemy's tactics behind it. Then when I prayed to the Lord, He led me to Isaiah chapter 2. And this is the complete Jewish Bible. It has more Hebrew words. So in the Acharit Hayamim, probably mispronouncing that, but what that means is, in the end of days, the mountain of Adonai's house, Adonai is Hebrew for the Lord, will be established as the most important mountain. It will be regarded more highly than the other hills, and all the Goyim, the nations, will stream there. Many peoples will go and say, come, let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us about his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of